A clip in question. Now,
Complaint
this video
filed on Friday.
Private text messages and other documents that we've obtained reveal
document. We call it a 12b6 motion to dismiss. And it essentially says the jury doesn't need to see this. No courtroom ever needs to see these claims that have been made against the New York Times by Justin Baldoni.
Still on the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni legal drama, it turns out that this time the New York Times has been dragged into it. Or did they manage to get themselves stuck on their own? What began as a routine report on a Hollywood movies, behind-the-scenes drama quickly spiraled into an explosive scandal that raises serious questions about journalistic integrity, media bias, and the manipulation of public narratives with stakes this high. It's no surprise that Baldwin's legal team is fighting back fiercely, claiming that the New York Times, the paper of record, got it all wrong.
There was a video that Megan Twohey sort of edited. So not only, Chris, did they compile a massive article with all the text and all the research, they went and edited a video as well, all within like 24 hours, which seems...
The controversy that rocked Hollywood began with an explosive New York Times article.
The controversy that rocked Hollywood began with an explosive New York Times article that ignited a firestorm of legal battles, public outcry, and media scrutiny. The piece, penned by renowned investigative journalist Megan T, uncovered a complex web of alleged unethical behavior surrounding actor and director Justin Baldoni and his PR team. The story painted Baldoni as the mastermind behind a smear campaign targeting actress Blake Lively, best known for her role in the romantic drama It Ends With Us. According to the article, Lively had been subjected to a series of behind-the-scenes manipulations orchestrated by Baldoni and his team, all to damage her reputation.
Now, and that's what the New York Times is coming back and saying, look, we're not Blake Lively. We're not the ones making the allegation. We're just fairly reporting on what Blake is suing Justin and Wayfair for.
This startling accusation immediately thrust Lively into the role of the victim, with the narrative framing her as the innocent party caught in a carefully orchestrated campaign of deceit. Baldoni, on the other hand, was depicted as a puppet master, pulling the strings of a calculated smear effort, and his name became synonymous with dishonesty and manipulation in the eyes of many readers. The article's sensational nature seemed designed to capture attention, and it succeeded in spades, firing up social media, igniting passionate debates, and causing fans to take sides in an unfolding drama. But as often happens in the world of high-profile media, the situation quickly took a turn. The story began to unravel as soon as it hit the digital newsstands, and it wasn't just the content of the article that came under scrutiny, it was the way it was presented. The article, which seemed like a straightforward piece of investigative journalism at first, soon revealed its own set of inconsistencies.
Darn good job of describing New York's fair reporting privilege and how New York law should apply, which we're going to get into. But here we're getting a glimpse of Brian Friedman, Baldoni's team saying,
legal battle against one of the most powerful media institutions in the world, taking on the New York Times, an outlet his legal team describes as a PTIC. Bastion of the media establishment is not easy, but Boni is not backing down. Instead, he has launched a vigorous challenge against what he claims is not just defamation, but a calculated act of malicious collusion designed to damage his reputation and career. The case centers around an explosive article and an accompanying video produced by the New York Times journalist Megan Twohey. In these reports, Twohey alleges that Baldoni, along with other individuals connected to Wayfair Entertainment, Baldoni's production company, was behind a retaliatory campaign to smear a former employee. The allegations were reportedly based on an extensive review of thousands of pages of documents, some of which the New York Times claimed were obtained via subpoena.
Pointing not just to the article, but the video that Twohey did, which I think is a brilliant move on Baldoni's part, on its reporter's review of thousands of pages of documents.
However, Balin's legal team has forcefully pushed back against these claims, arguing that the New York Times engaged in a deeply flawed and biased reporting process. According to Baldoni, not only did the publication fail to present his side of the story fairly, but it also relied on misleading language and unverified sources to construct a narrative that was more sensational than factual. His attorneys assert that the supposed subpoena documents, which formed a critical foundation for the article's claims, may not have even existed, raising serious questions about the credibility of the reporting.
Does not amount to a legal cause of action. Okay, so that's the motion to dismiss. Even if everything he said about us is true and were proven to a jury, we could not be held liable.
Beyond the immediate defamation allegations, this case underscores a larger battle over media accountability and journalistic ethics. If Baldwin's claims hold up in court, it could expose a significant breach of responsible reporting standards by one of the most respected names in journalism. At its core, this lawsuit isn't just about protecting Baldwin's reputation. It's about challenging the unchecked power of major media outlets to shape narratives without consequence.
Or the press. And that's super important because powerful people, would be able to destroy a journalist or media outlet.
Suing a media giant like the New York Times is no easy feat, with the law largely in their favor and deep legal resources at their disposal. Taking them to court can feel like an uphill battle. In this case, the New York Times insists that they conducted a thorough investigation before publishing the article, but the truth tells a different story. Their reporting was skewed, favoring Blake Lively while failing to give the Baldoni camp a fair chance to present their side. Instead of upholding journalistic integrity, they seemed more interested in taking sides than in delivering an unbiased account. The question remains, was this a genuine oversight or a deliberate attempt to shape the narrative?
Sorry, the clips, I'm having trouble for some reason. X has been issued, but yeah, I mean, it's coming from her own mouth. This is the problem, right? They say on the screen, oh, it's alleged smear, but hearing the investigative journalist, the person who's writing this.
The timing of the revisions only added fuel to the fire. The changes to the subheadline occurred just hours before the article's final publication, making it seem as though the editorial team was scrambling to fine-tune the narrative in real time. Critics were quick to point out that in a high-stakes story like this one, even minor tweaks could have a significant impact on the overall tone of the piece. The headline, after all, is the first thing readers see. It's the hook that pulls them in, and with a story as divisive as this one, the way it was presented could mean the difference between portraying Lively as a victim or portraying her as a participant in a larger, more complicated drama.
In doing so, they forfeited the fair report privilege. Do you agree with that? Is that a fair argument?
Absolutely.
Some pointed out that these changes could be seen as a strategic move by the Times to better position Lively's side of the story, possibly to avoid backlash from the growing wave of legal action being threatened by Baldoni's team. In this light, the revisions could be interpreted as an attempt to shift the narrative in a way that would minimize legal risk while still maintaining a strong stance against Baldoni. The resulting headlines seemed to bolster Lively's position, which was especially important in a case where public opinion could play a major role in the ongoing legal battles.
Plead or assert enough allegations against the New York Times, if proven to be true at trial, would amount to a legal cause of action for damages against them. Absolutely, I think he's overcome that defense of fair reporting, so he's going to survive on that one.
And then we have this other issue that the salacious article and video, well before TUI contacted Wayfarer the night before publication for fact-checking, after the New York Times had months of plotting with Lively's partners, the Wayfarer parties, got hours to respond. I mean, I guess, is that okay? Like, it doesn't seem okay to me if they're supposed to be the bastion of journalism, right? But, if they had just said it's the opinion, would this have mattered? Will this factor in the fact that they did seemingly have this for months due to the metadata and things that we're seeing?
However, this narrative manipulation, whether intentional or not, did not go unnoticed by the public. Many readers began to question the ethics of the article itself. Was the New York Times prioritizing a sensational story over objective journalism? Were they skewing the truth to cater to the growing public outrage against Baldoni simply because it made for a better headline and a more compelling read? These questions lingered in the air as the legal proceedings continued to unfold.
You'd think they'd still take time to put his responses in the article, right? And instead, they just released it a couple hours earlier.
Baldwin's team didn't mince words when it came to challenging Lively's narrative. They argued that it was a fundamental contradiction for her to claim victimhood after being so involved in the decision-making process. If Lively was as uncomfortable with the intimate scenes as she later claimed, why hadn't she spoken up earlier or insisted on changes during production? According to Baldwin's team, the crux of the issue wasn't just the allegations themselves, but the way the New York Times had framed the story. Baldwin's legal and PR teams accused the Times of rushing to publish the article without giving him a fair opportunity to respond to the allegations. They argued that the article was written to bolster Lively's narrative, ignoring crucial facts that could have offered a more balanced portrayal of the situation.
And my guess is they were worried another outlet was going to hit this story. So what he's saying is that, hey, we had a promise here together that you were going to give me till noon. I said, okay, I was cooperating with you.
The timing of the New York Times article raised eyebrows as well. According to Baldwin's camp, the piece had been published without sufficient corroboration or an effort to provide a fair hearing for both sides. They claimed that by the time Baldoni was contacted for his response, the article was already in its final stages with the tone and content seemingly set in stone. This quick move to publish without a chance for Baldoni to defend himself was seen by many as a glaring flaw in the journalistic process. It was as if the New York Times had already decided whose side they were on, and it certainly wasn't Baldwin's. The allegations against him were serious, and yet he was given little time to clear his name before the article went live, leaving him scrambling to mount a defense while the public already had its opinion formed.
Here is some information. I think he gave it to them on the morning of the 21st. Here's some partial information. I'm still working on it. I'm going to get the rest of this information or whatever before noon. And New York Times prints a story prior to noon.
If they had genuinely wanted to hear his side of the story, they would have contacted him much earlier. The timing makes it clear they never intended to give him a fair chance. The narrative was already set in stone, and their so-called investigation was nothing more than a formality. Instead of balanced reporting, they pushed forward with a one-sided story, leaving no room for the truth from Baldwin's perspective.
Based the report that she did on the CRD complaint, but also on reviewing thousands of other documents. Well, okay, now you've gone beyond just reporting on the CRD complaint.